Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lance with Love to Hate, back again with another review video. Today I'm checking out In the Ashes from Devir. All right, so In the Ashes. Now, I'm going to start off this video by saying to you that this portion of the video, this first initial portion of the video, is going to be the spoiler-free portion of the video. There's not going to be any major spoilers anywhere in this video. However, once we go down to the table and I show you how this game works, and then when we come back and I'll share my thoughts on it, there are going to be some minor spoilers. Not anything major. However, if you would like to not have anything spoiled about this game, then watch this first portion of the video and then don't watch the rest. So what I'm going to talk to you about is what this game is all about. So this is In the Ashes. It's a game from Pablo Aguilera, and it is a book, as you can see. And it might look like it's like an RPG or D&D type book, and it is an RPG game, but however, this is going to be a game that you play inside the book. There's going to be different scenarios that you'll be enacting using a pencil. And what you'll be doing in this game is you'll play as a main character, and you'll dictate what that character does by choosing a number of cards that are available to you on the other side. There's going to be one page that looks like a map, kind of think like Gloomhaven, a sort of map. It's kind of like a dungeon crawler kind of thing. And then on the opposite page, there are going to be a grid of cards that you're going to be choosing from. And when you choose your cards that you'll use each round, you are limited to choosing cards that are in different rows and different columns. So in other words, you've got to pick diagonals. You can't pick more than one card that's in the same row or same column. And so you're choosing these cards strategically based upon what's going to be happening in that round. And typically you'll be going up against an opponent or opponents, and you'll want to try to survive the round or kill the opponent or do certain things. And in between the different scenarios, there's going to be lots of story, lots of narrative portions in which you might make decisions along the way. And the decisions you make determine what page you turn to. This is going to be one of those choose your own adventure kind of stories. And it's a branching story. There's going to be different outcomes depending upon what you pick throughout the course of the game. And as you can see, it is a pretty thick book. There's going to be lots of gameplay in this. You're going to get your money's worth as you explore what's happening. So let's talk a little bit about the storyline, and then we'll go down to the table and I'll show you how it works. So the storyline with this is that you are on an island, and this is going to take place in a bit of a fantastic kind of themed world, fantasy themed. Where some, creatures are going to be existing, some dark creatures, demonic kind of creatures are going to be involved in this. There's going to be some cultists, some weird people kind of going on around the island, and that's largely in part because a comet is seen flying through the sky, crashing into the island, and it's kind of made all of the islanders a little bit kooky. And so you are one of the people trying to figure out what exactly is this thing that's crashed into the island, and why is it making everybody kind of go weird? And you start to discover that there are not so savory people on the island with you who are wanting to get at this comet for nefarious gain. And you're trying to stop that from happening. Now, there's a lot more to the storyline than what I just explained to you, but that's kind of the bare bones of what the theme of this game is. And again, you're going to be making choices along the way. You're going to be upgrading your character. This is an RPG. And as you make choices about the upgrades that you make to your character, that changes the things that you're going to be doing. It's going to change the storyline. And again, this is a branching narrative. And so because you pick this particular class, or these traits, then that kind of changes the direction of the narrative. Now, there are going to be times in which you might fail a specific scenario, and it might be kind of no big deal. The storyline progresses. It might change a little bit because you didn't pass it. There's going to be times in which maybe you didn't succeed, but you also didn't fail, and that's also going to change the drive of the story. And then there are going to be times in which you fail, and your character is not going to recover from that. Let's just put it that way. And you're going to have to go back and make different choices if you want to continue the story. So there are ultimate fails, let's call that, in this storyline. So you do want to try to succeed, obviously, and do your best in it. Now, that's about as much as I can say without really spoiling anything specific to what this game does for you. So let's go down to the table where I'll walk you through the prologue, or at least the initial steps of the prologue, so you get an idea of what to expect when you're playing this game. Again, if you don't want to see that, then don't watch anything else in this video, because after that we'll come back and I'll share my thoughts on this and maybe get into a little bit more of the specifics of what this game does and how it unfolds. All right, I have In the Ashes on the table. Now let me show you all about this book game, this RPG book game. Now again, if you don't want to have anything spoiled, go ahead and skip over this portion of the video. In fact, don't watch anything else in this video, because I am going to show you some of the things inside this book. Specifically the prologue, I'm not going to spoil anything major. Now, what this is going to be, you're going to open up this book, and first thing that you're going to discover after you get past the introduction is this prologue. And the prologue is going to open up with you being on this island, and it's going to tell you this story. You're going to read through the text here. Anything that's in a gray box is going to give you some rules that will apply to the course of the game, and here's some more at the bottom. But essentially, you're going to be this little boy right here. I assume that's who you are at the beginning of this. You're not really 100% sure, but let's go ahead and just say that you're this little boy, and you are walking upon a witch trial in which this girl over here is going to be burned at the stake. My goodness. And anyhow, that's how this story opens. Pretty jarring experience right from the get-go, but you are going to then encounter your first scenario, and then this is how the scenarios are going to look. They're going to be all on one page over here. It's going to have a map with a bunch of hexes out here, and you are going to be represented by X0, capital X with the 0, which the X is just your character identification, and then 0 means that's where you're at the beginning of the round. As you move throughout a scenario, you're going to write that on one of the hexes where you move, drawing a line, and then X1 to indicate that that's where you ended your movement at the end of the first round, X2 where you ended your movement at the end of the second round. And on the other side of the page are going to be more rules about that specific scenario, but there's going to be these cards up here in a grid fashion. In this scenario, it's only a 2x2 grid, but you're going to have many more cards to work with in the actual scenarios that you'll find throughout the course of the game. But the major rule about these cards, and as you can see, some will let you move and then others will let you do other actions. The major rule is that you have to pick you're going to pick a number of cards each round, and each card you pick has to be in a different row and a different column. So in other words, I can't pick the 2 move cards because they're in the same column, nor could I pick these 2 cards because they're in the same row. So in other words, for this specific example with the 2x2 grid, I've got to pick diagonals. So as you can see here, I moved 2, and then I listened at a distance of 3. And then in the second round, as I put 2s in these bubbles here, I moved 3 and then listened adjacent. And so in this scenario, you're trying to sneak throughout this area to understand why the girl is burning at the witch, what these different characters are saying. You're trying to eavesdrop on them to understand. And depending upon which of the different characters you selected, it's going to tell you which different page you're going to be turning to and marking things in the margin of the book. It tells you to mark a specific icon in the margin. And so whenever you turn to a certain page, so page 11, let me just show you real quick what that might look like without spoiling too much. Oh no, there's some more stuff there. And so we turn to page 11. As you can see, there's something over here. I would mark that. I would not want to read anything in here, but I'll just point out that this is upside down text, and so you can't accidentally read it unless you're really good about reading upside down text. But when you were to turn to page 11 and start reading whatever's on page 11, you'll see that you marked that, and it will tell you to read that upside down text. Now, Most scenarios are not going to be pass-fail. They're going to be pass-fail or maybe neutral, like you didn't pass or fail. And depending on what you do, there's going to be some sort of outcome down here at the bottom, and it'll tell you to turn to a certain page. But I'm just going to keep showing you here what's in the prologue, and again, more narrative that you'll be reading through, including a fantastic, amazing artwork that really keeps you invested in the storyline. So that's pretty much the prologue, and then you're going to move on to Act 1, He Who Spoke with the Tides, and there's going to be a map of sorts, and as you can see, we're on an island, and really you're only familiar with the port, what's right here along the coast. Much of the interior of the island is a mystery to you because you've never ventured beyond what was comfortable, so you don't know what's in the mountains or that sort of thing. So, but you will open up on the storyline of your first character, this guy right here. I'm not going to tell you much about his storyline, but then you will play out his story, reading the story and playing the different scenarios. Now, I will tell you that there are going to be some Easter eggs that you will find throughout the story. There's going to be a number of them. Some of them will have, I'm going to show you another little scenario here. Some of them will have things in the map or on the scenario that you will want to be zooming in on, paying very close attention to, trying not to miss certain specific details, while others will have important things that are in the text of what you'll be reading. So there's going to be Easter eggs all throughout this book that you'll want to try to find because it will unlock specific scenarios that you get to play through, but only if you discover those Easter eggs. So, as you can see here, I'm going to be battling against a mushroom in this scenario, and the bad guys do have life, and they will attack back. And so that's how this game progresses, and as you can see here, the grid gets bigger. You're playing a 3x3 grid, and you might play with more cards than just 3x3. So, that's the idea of what this game presents. As you can see, there's a lot of content in this. I will show you at the back of the book, there is going to be a save sheet that helps you to remember where exactly you are in the game, depending on what act you're playing in and what page scenario that you were just on. You'll mark certain items, and that will help you to remember where you're at. I'm not going to explain to you in full detail how this works, but I will say that this was very easy to use. Never once was I confused, or never once did I end up not being on the correct scenario. This was very easy to use. I was very pleased by that. I will show you that there are rules in the back of the book that helps you to remember certain things so that you don't forget any of the major rules, and just in case. And so if you put this game on the shelf and you don't play it for a long while and you come back to it after a minute or two, you can read the back pages of the book and refamiliarize yourself with the game, and you'll be good to go. So yeah, that's what is inside the book. Now let's go back up top where I'll share my thoughts on this one. All right, so there you have it. That's how In the Ashes works. Now I'm going to share my specific thoughts on what I thought about this game. And again, I'm going to try not to give any kind of major spoilers, but I can't guarantee that there won't be small, minor spoilers. I'm not going to, ruin the story or anything like that. You don't have to worry about that. So what did I think about this game? Well, my initial impressions with this game was that this was a highly unique experience. I've done some of these kind of pocket dungeon kind of experiences where you do have a pencil, and all you need is a pencil and the actual, it wasn't a book, it was like a notebook kind of thing, and you kind of went through each scenario with your pencil. This is the first time I've ever seen it be such a narrative-driven experience that was highly detailed, and it really kind of packed the theme into it. And on top of that, the way that they use the pencil, apparatus with the gameplay in the book was highly unique. Really interesting how they did that, and it's not one thing the entire straight way through the book. There are different acts that you play through in this game, and with that, you are going to be having different characters through those different acts, and each character has you play the game differently, using your pencil in different ways, using the book in different ways at that too. Some characters have more chance involved, more luck involved. Other characters have more skill involved. And I thought that was a really clever way to make the game feel fresh and different with the different characters, and giving you a unique feeling as you play out that character. Some characters are stronger than others. Some characters are weaker, and you have to try to figure out, head-on straight attack is not maybe the best thing to do. Maybe you want to keep some distance from between you and the opponents. The different enemies that you encounter throughout the story are very different as well. Each scenario felt fresh and unique, and I really appreciated that aspect of the game. Now, I will be honest, I got into maybe about 10 to 12 different scenarios and felt like the game was maybe too easy. I was flying through each scenario, really feeling like, man, there's not much of a challenge here, and never really getting that feel of I was on the verge of defeat. And I was really worried that that was going to be my experience all the way through this. Now, it wasn't. There were definitely some scenarios that I felt like were extremely difficult, maybe even some that you were supposed to fail. I didn't know how you were supposed to win those particular ones unless you just got extremely lucky. So that's you know, I'm okay for that, as long as it's not that entire experience all the way through that you're going to fail everything. But that being said, even later on in the storyline, there were still some scenarios that I felt like maybe were a little too easy. So all in all, I felt like the vast majority of the scenarios weren't that difficult to beat. There were some that were challenging. There were a handful that were very challenging, but the vast majority were pretty easy. So if you're someone who's not wanting an easy experience that really wants to be tested, then you might not want to check this game out. However, if you're more here for the storyline, the branching narrative, seeing the different ways in which this game plays out, seeing the uniqueness of using a pencil to play this game, then you're really going to get your bang for your buck here with this one, because it provides that in spades. The narrative is very interesting. Now, I will say that the beginning of the story seemed a little rushed, didn't really know what was going on, but as you kind of get into it, it fleshes it out a little bit more. Act 1 maybe feels a little abrupt and choppy. Acts 2 and so on are much more detailed, and the story is fleshed out better. The conclusion of the story is really unique, really interesting. I love the way this game ends. I have played through the entire campaign. I've seen everything that's in this book. So I've not played every single story or mission, because you won't play every scenario unless you play multiple campaigns, and even then you might still not play some scenarios. But I know what this game has to offer, and it's a really fun experience. My time with this one was that I played this in its entirety in probably about 4.5 days. I had a few days in between where I didn't play it at all because I was busy with other things, but if I just focused on the days that I did play it, it was about 4.5 days, and that's how much I really enjoyed this, because I was doing scenario after scenario after scenario. I would not play one scenario at a time. I would definitely be playing at least 3 or 4 scenarios in one setting, because it's very much that's how much I enjoyed it. Got done with one scenario, immediately wanted to go on to the next. And each scenario is only going to take you maybe 10 to 15 minutes. They're pretty straightforward. There are some that are a little more complex than others, but there was never a single scenario in which I had to question what I was doing and didn't feel like I got the rules right. It's very straightforward. The prologue really walks you through how to play this game. Each time something new is introduced into the story, the game does a great job of explaining to you the different rules for that. And never once was I having to question things. Now, as I showed you down at the table, you can save this game, and there's an appendix in the back to kind of explain some of the rules in case you forget them. I didn't really ever have to use that too much because, again, I didn't feel like the game was super complex. There were times when maybe I forgot what page I was on, so I needed to look back at the save sheet. Occasionally, maybe I needed to refresh on what a certain bolded word was, but more often than not, I had this game understood and was easy to get into, even if I hadn't played it in a day or two. So, really had a great time with this one. As far as pros and cons go, I think the pros for this is that it's a book and that you can take this and play this anywhere. I played this in a lot of different places. You can just, all you need is a pencil. So it's really adaptable and portable, and you can, play this anywhere, like I said. Some other pros for it, it's quick and simple to get into. Just turn to that back page, see where you last played, turn to that page, you're ready to go, get your pencil, and then boom, yeah. Some cons, again, it might feel too easy for most of the scenarios. You're going to want to get into the storyline a little bit further into it before you really start to feel the challenge with this one. You know, you kind of have to work all the way through a campaign before you can really go back and change anything if you wanted to change anything. So once you've made decisions, you can't really go back and change those really, because I mean, you're marking on the pages and it's really hard to kind of change that. The choices you make are permanent, and so with that, you know, this obviously has a limited use. You can't just play this over and over and over and over and over again. It does have limited use. That being said, you do get good use out of this. It's not like it's a one and done kind of thing. You can replay the campaign and experience different branching storylines with this. The overarching story is probably still the same, but there are going to be some little changes that change you know, the decisions that you make. You're going to get different companions, different allies based on the choices that you make. Certain people might die if you aren't successful, and you will have fewer player or characters to work with, and so that's another way that the storyline can change. So it can change pretty dramatically, even if the overarching story doesn't change all that much. Those are some pros and cons. My ultimate score for this one, I'm going to give this an 8.0 for my score on this one. I had a really great time with it. I was really happy that Devir sent it to me to check out, and jumped straight into it. Again, played it in 4.5 days. And can't recommend it enough. If this might be something that you might be interested in, I would highly recommend you checking it out. It's not going to be the best game for everybody, obviously, but if after watching this video you feel like it might be something that would pique your interest, I would highly recommend going out there, getting yourself a copy of it and trying it out, because it might really surprise you. So that's my thoughts here on In the Ashes. It is from Devir. Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think about this game. If you like this video, please, please, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance, and this is Love to Hate, where we try to bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.